What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Other Side of the Firewall podcast. We talk about the latest and greatest in cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color who've made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, and as always, I'm joined by Shannon Tynes.
What's up? What's up?
What's going on? And Chris Abercon.
What's going on, everybody?
What's going on? So this should be season 4, episode 5, I think. I'm already losing track. It's either episode.
We're doing the seasons now. We're doing.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
So I think that's the right numbering. But for all those who are tuning in, so we are excited that people listen to our ramblings every week. We're super pumped to be on 99.1 FM out in the Atlanta metro area. So please continue to tune in on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern. And then we're also on Channel 10 Public Access in Fairfax and DC area at various times. So we have another 8 or so episodes I need to upload for the upcoming season. So definitely continue to check us out on all your platforms of choice. And hit up the website, ramcyber.io. It's been revamped, so it looks a lot better. It's a lot more coherent. And it ties everything together, right? The services we provide as a cybersecurity company, the podcast, as well as the book. So check out the book. You can go to theothersideoffirewall.com or ramcyber.io and pick up your copy as well for a discount. But without further ado, I give it to Shannon.
All right, everybody. So this article comes from theregister.com, written by Ian Thompson. And the title of this one is Deepfake Detectors Are Slowly Coming of Age at a Time of Dire Need, right? So fakers are coming for you, right? Like they're using videos, they're using pictures, they're using voice, right? So this estimate that they put in here, I was like, yeah, this seems a little low. Like when I saw it, I was like, this seems a little low because I know we've done stories where like the amount of money that's being made from deep fakes and doing not cyber attacks, but fooling people with AI. I know it'll be
right. Social networking.
Yeah.
Right,
like,
yeah.
The number seemed low and they're like, yeah, one of the guys in there was like, yeah, that's definitely an underestimation, right? But Deloitte is the one that estimates deepfake fraud will cost the U.S. up to $40 billion by 2027. But they say in this article, everyone they've spoken to thinks that's an underestimation. And I said that as soon as I read the number, I was like, seems low, especially if it's going to be in another couple of years, right? Because the technology is only going to get better and they're only going to get more proficient at using it, right? And so they talk about in the article about the detectors, right? They're coming of age and how much better they're getting, right? And the thing is, some of the things they talk about in here, I could see it working on some people if you don't just take that 1 or 2 extra steps, right? Like sometimes you have to ask yourself, like, does this seem like something someone would ask from you, right? Like if you get a call from a family member, the fact that they're asking, for money to be sent or something along those lines, like you got to ask yourself, just sit and take a beat and be like, okay, does this sound like something they would ask for, right? And you always got to do that second verification, like try to reach them through other means other than how they reached out to you, right? To see if it actually is something that they're actually asking for, if it's actually them asking for it, right? So like video impersonation, like that's one of those things like before AI even really came of age like it is now, like that was something that was always out there, right? And I know even as of, it was probably like a year ago, right? Like we were sending the videos where it was like the fake Tom Cruise, was out there. The Will Smith one that got better, right? There was one from like maybe 2 years ago that wasn't so great, and then the one like a year ago was a lot better. But I mean, that stuff predates AI, and it's only getting better, right? But they talk about different ways to actually tell, different detectors out there that can detect these a little bit better, right? Where it comes to color screen, they do different frame evaluation, right? Like look at it in the beginning, the middle, and the end to determine whether or not you have like the edging is off on some of the stuff, right? Like different things like that. And honestly, in this day and age, there are people that want to believe certain things, and I think they get targeted, right? Like people want to see whether it be a politician or somebody famous say certain things, and they just take it and run with it, right? Like they don't sit there and think, hey, no, this could be AI doing this or whatever, right? Like they even mentioned in the article, there was a Chris Cuomo is a guy that's in I don't know if he's on TV anymore, right? Because I know he
Yeah,
took
I
it.
think he's still a journalist. He has like he's on a different network or something like that.
Okay, yeah. No, like I know he had a Sirius XM show at one point too, right? But they talk about a video that he had posted that wasn't necessarily created by him, but it was a deep fake of AOC, right? And some things that she said. And he had to pull it down and apologize, right? Because you have people that believe differently from her that want to believe those things, and they'll just take it and run with it, right? And that's one of those things where this is where it's dangerous, right? This is where AI is dangerous, but like the technology is getting better at determining, reals and fakes. And they mentioned in the article here, they talk about there's tools that have like a 90% effective rate. Well, that 10% is still enough to make money, right? That 10% that's still out there that's not being detected is enough to defraud people or cause misinformation or disinformation, right? So,
Yeah, when
it's,
I first saw that number, 10%, think about it like if you had operating margins of 10%, you'd be killing it. You'd be killing it.
Yeah.
What are Walmart's margins? Like 4%, 3%, whatever. Imagine you got 10% margins. That's
yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing is that, and I think the point of the article is that yes, we are trying to get better, right, and try to minimize that 10%, right, is what they're trying to get to. But yeah, it's a scary thought that 10%, because like I say this I say this not to put it out there, but like when I was working at the NIST, like if we got to 90% efficiency on certain things, we were like, okay, we're good. Like with all the business that we
Yeah,
managed,
that's
like it was
stellar.
so many, like
stellar. Yeah.
that was good. But in this instance, that's not the case, right? Like it's one of those things where it is defrauding people 10% of the time, and that number is contributing to that 40 billion that they say, that Deloitte quoted, but is definitely an underestimate. But Chris, what's your thoughts on this?
The first thing that came to mind was that that article from about a while ago where KnowBe4 hired on a North Korean guy, right? So that's the first thing. I'm like, video technology is getting better. Chances are that person North Korea was using either had great English or some type of audio enhancement that took out accents, right, or whatever it might be, or even a translating service, right? For example, if you like fire up Copilot, I'll ask the readers or the listeners to fire up Copilot on their device. If you select the audio icon or the mic icon, you can actually talk to Copilot like a person, and you can talk to them and have them speak in different languages. It's crazy the way how advanced some of these translation services are now. Incredible how advanced some of these generators for deep fakes, insane, right? I also saw on another note with this North Korean guy that got hired on KnowBe4, I saw another LinkedIn post where a guy had actually recorded an interview with someone using some type of technology, right? So what he had him do was actually, hey, I want you to put your hand over your face like this. If you're watching us, but he's putting his hand over in front of his face, and the guy wouldn't do it, right? But he knew, the interviewer knew that whenever he would do that, the face would like change. You could see like like there's that border around the hand that shows like it's something fishy is going on, right? So there's a lot of stuff to be watching out for. And at the practical layer for general listeners on social media or something, deepfakes are all over trying to follow you. And if you're private on Instagram, right, you have to get followed and you have to accept follows, right? Like a lot of people will just add a 1 to like a well-known account, right? So let's say celebrity whatever, and then 1, and you won't notice. And then you're like, oh, why is this celebrity trying to follow me, right? A lot of unsuspecting people are like, oh, awesome, yeah. But lo and behold, this person's a scammer trying to extract information from you, data mine, whatever it might be. So be careful about who you add on social media, because these people have all the same capabilities that a regular person does now. You can just create a photo of yourself. You can create a portrait of somebody. You can create a fake person, right? Somebody that doesn't exist. Just draw me somebody. Give me a picture of a general person that's in a business attire and create a business identity for me. I am in my 30s, run a business, whatever. You can have AI create an entire lie and create an entire illusion for somebody. So just be careful about who you interface with online.
So
right?
what you're talking about with like the celebrity wanting to follow you, this is what I'm talking about, where asking that 1 or 2 extra questions can come in, right? Like it doesn't necessarily have to be someone close to you. It's like, why does Will Smith want to follow me? I ain't never said anything about Jada. Why you want to smack me up? You know what I mean?
Right, he's trying to find you.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? What's going on? Got to ask 1 or 2 extra questions.
Yeah, just 1 or 2 extra questions, right? So I know that there was, what was it? Andrew Como. There was, I was going to talk about pixels, right? So the way a lot of these scanners work, right? It's that they change, or they sense the pixel metadata, right? There's all, if you look into like actual, well, even at the layers of like Photoshop or, whatever, there's so many things that happen at some like external layers where metadata can get changed. AI, like these advanced AIs that can help spot these fakes, they notice things like this. So my thing is, I'm thinking this deep fake era, it's going to make, I think it's going to force, companies to even like have in-person interviews, or like do more verifications on video before you interview somebody. I like, hey, there's going to be like, hey, I want you to touch your head. I want you to do this. Take off your glasses or something, right? Just to show that you're a real person. I think there's going to be some type of standard at some point where, verification of like actual, like, hey, you're not deep faked. You're not this or that, right? You're not using any other enhancements other than the face filter on Teams or Zoom. But I do think that there's going to be more robust controls, at least implemented around that, right?
Right. They're going to have to, because their proprietary information is going to be leaving out the door going to North Korea, right? If they don't, right?
But yeah, Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Well, first off, Halle Berry does want to follow me. All right, that's definitely her account. I don't know why she only had 5 friends, but I believe. Now, people just want
the real one, Halle Berry, right?
That's right, exactly. Is it people want to believe, right? Like it's been like that since forever. Like people believed in phone scams and things of that nature, and Nigerian princes and all this other nonsense because they want to believe, and people take advantage of that, right? Like it's just that is what sales is. If you reduce it to its most basic level, is giving people something they want to believe in. Right. And just like, oh, I'll take the snake oil. And, we're just taking it to the 21st century. But so I have 2 issues with this. Like, so issue number 1 is just like back when they used to put incorrect information in the newspaper. I think they call it libel, right? Like if it's not slander, it's libel.
Slander.
If it's, yeah, if it's in print, the retraction is never as loud as the initial statement. So especially in the age of internet, it moves so fast. If you tell someone a lie, they're never going to come back, potentially never come back to see the retraction, right? They just saw it on the internet. They believe it to be real now. And that's how all of these conspiracies and all of this, nonsense kind of bubbles up, is because the internet is moving so fast, you can't retract anything. So that video of AOC that Cuomo pushed out was already out there before Cuomo pushed it out, right? Like it's already circulating the internet. So it's not like if he put it on TV, so many less people watch TV than they ever did before, right? So he just gave it to people who don't use social media. So he did spread it, but he spread it to a new audience of people who don't have TikTok or whatever, that have seen the video initially. Mm-hmm. And then when he goes to retract it, right? Who's to say those people ever came back to see it for his apology? I think the problem is that you have to stop it before it happens. You can't stop it after the fact. There's no adjudication after the fact.
Well, we can go to a deeper layer of that, right? Like if an organization or somebody's willingly lying to deceive, right? All they have to do is post something fake, and then half-butted, half-assed apology after that, right? So that's how they can continue to, but I won't go there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because there's news networks that were sued in the not so recent past, for millions of dollars, and people don't know that. Like that continuously comes up to tell people, like, hey, they said that they were kind of like sports entertainment, they're not real news, but they just continue to push, their agenda because they're a company and they want to stay in business. But the truth is buried somewhere, deep down now, and that goes across the board for a lot of organizations. But my other beef with it is I don't necessarily I like conspiracies, but I don't believe in conspiracies. I think most stuff happens out of opportunistic opportunity, if that's a phrase. What's better than creating a problem is creating the problem and the solution. You get money at both ends. So in this case, a lot of these companies created a problem, right? They created software or programs that are able to actively deceive and be used for nefarious reasons. But a lot of these companies are circling back around and they're creating the solution. They're like, oh, we can tell that this deepfake is a thing because we have, this tool and that tool. But really, it's just you retrofitting the tool that you had initially that created it. So I do have a problem with that.
It's funny you say that. It reminded me of a scene from 30 Rock. And Alec Baldwin is the network head, and they created something called vertical integration. So they fed people something that gave them diarrhea, and then they created the diarrhea medicine.
There it is.
It's funny. But yeah, same type of principle.
That's an awesome term, vertical integration.
That's a business term usually for conglomerates that are vertically integrated. They can control the process.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Like it was something like that. It was like some company speak.
Hilarious. But yeah, it's just we're moving at the speed of light, right? Like we're getting to this convergence that they speak of. We're able to think and build things, and then they just exist out in the world, and it's getting faster and faster and faster. So the issue is, in my opinion, that we need to, because we always talk about bake-in security in the creation of things. They're just not thinking of that. They're like, how do we get to market as quickly as possible, which they've been doing forever, right? With drugs and food and medicine, and they're doing the same thing with AI. They're not putting guardrails on it initially; they're doing it after the fact, and it's just becoming a systemic issue for the 21st century. Like this is the new, thing of a drug that went south. I can't think of one right now. It's like putting Coke in Coca-Cola. It'll pep you up all right, but I kind of digress because we got to move on to the next topic. But before I do, definitely hit up all the websites that go by our name. I always forget to say that, so I'm going to say it several times in this one: ramcyber.io or theothersideofthefirewall.com. But Shannon, over to you for the next topic.
All right. So the next one is a release from the Office of Public Affairs from justice.gov, right? So the title of this one is Justice Department Announces Coordinated Disruption Actions Against Black Suit Ransomware Operations, right? So this is them talking about the law enforcement seizes servers, domains, and approximately $1 million in laundered proceeds owned by Black Suit Royal Ransomware, right? So this is one of those things where it's a multinational task force type thing that got down and did some work, right? So look, we talk about, like me anyway, I love to see this, right? Where we work with other countries, right? And the fact that we can still work with other countries and do these things is great. But yeah, so the takedown that they talk about in this was done by the Department of Homeland Security's Homeland Security Investigations, right? The Secret Service, the U.S. Secret Service, IRS Criminal Investigation, FBI, international law enforcement from the UK, Germany, Ireland, France, Canada, Ukraine, Lithuania, right? Like, keep naming them, keep going. Let's keep making this happen, right? So, but what they talk about in the articles, they unsealed a warrant, right? Talk about they confiscated the seizure of virtual currency valued at $1,091,453 at the time of seizure. So I don't know if it's one of those things where that's the initial, and then it'll get larger from there as they start getting into what they've confiscated, right? Like, so if they have the servers and they have the domains, it can be one of those things where they can reach out further and get more money. But yeah, this was a good thing to see, right? And I know, like, they talk about like cybersecurity and doing better and doing different goals to prevent these types of things from happening, right? So they talk about working in close coordination, like I said, with other countries, but they also talk about the cybersecurity advisory they had out recently, right? So like, as I start going through and I started looking at some of these, like, these are all within like the last 2 weeks. Talking about the international takedown, they talk about the different things you can do to kind of prevent these types of things from happening, right? And when you look at what they talk about, and they call it the cross-sector cybersecurity performance goals. Like, as I was looking through these, I was like, these seem very basic. I don't know if it's because I've worked so long in the DoD. I'm like, how are these things not being done already? You know what I mean? When you start looking at what they're talking about in here, but it was an interesting read in the fact that the performance goals were things that I'm like, why are people not doing this anyway? Right? Like, why are you not scanning for different things? Why are you not paying attention to vulnerabilities that come up on those scans, patching those vulnerabilities? But there's different things they talk about. They talk about the different TTPs they put out there on how these actions are being accomplished. But yeah, it's interesting. Mitigating known vulnerabilities. Yeah, definitely. You would do that, right? Supply chain vulnerability disclosures, right? Changing default passwords. Yes, of course you would do that, right? But like, maybe that's not the case. Maybe that is how, and I don't know if they'll ever go into it or if they're able to address it on this is, some of the things that they were using through this group to try to gain access to different sectors. But like, yeah,
Right.
it's very basic stuff, man.
And go ahead, Chris.
I was just gonna say, I mean, Shan, that's why you are, strategic. You're a outstanding asset. A lot of veterans, right? A lot of veterans that go in with the security mindset don't realize, like, when they go out and they transition out of the military, they're like, man, these companies don't have any of the stuff that we did. But again, they have a different goal. They have a different mission, right? We are we take a defensive posture in DoD, right? We do everything that we can to protect, our troops, right? So, any little thing like that might seem little to us in the outside, right? It could cost the company a lot of money, right? So it's a balancing act, right?
Yeah, I was gonna.
Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say the same thing. I think we are biased.
Yeah, we're biased 100%. Like, why wouldn't you install this multi-million-dollar SIM? Like, that's going to cost your company. Why wouldn't you do that?
Right. Yeah, because I see it a lot as well. And I'm just like, how do you not already have these processes? Not like the mom and pops that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Like somebody who's trying to build up or whatever. But when you get to a mid-size or a corporate entity, and you're like, why don't you have this? It's just not a priority. They're like, let's make this money before we pay for the defense of our IP and what have you. And it usually comes from regulators. Like
Yeah.
a lot of regulation comes down. So it's kind of like full circle, right? Like we
Yeah.
were heavily regulated in the military, and now these larger entities that can cause harm are now being regulated like the Department of Defense was regulated. So it's coming, but yeah, we're definitely biased because I see some stuff and I'm just like, man, this is why they hired me. You get that, you feel that mission again. You're like, yeah, this is why they hired me. I need to fix this.
That's funny. I mean, I think for medium, small organizations, right, at a bare minimum, do what you have to do to make sure you can keep that cyber insurance, right? That cyber insurance is going to be key, right? I mean, talking back to the incident in Canada where the entire city didn't get a payout of 18 million or whatever it might be because they didn't have MFA installed. Cyber insurance says, hey, they identified that, but the city didn't implement it. So they were held, like, was it liable, or they were responsible for any of for that specific loss?
Yeah, for millions.
Yeah.
And I think they took the pill better than most because Canadians are so friendly. They're like, hey, we didn't do that.
Yeah.
Don't you know?
But no.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, it really is good to see that this coalition came together to knock these things down. Because at the end of the day, it's just like any other crime syndicate or I don't know what you would call it, like a cabal. These huge networks are kind of like in Arco it says like kind of operating with impunity on the internet. It's just harder to catch them. There's more anonymity as well as they're able, like we've seen in the past with Revil and other Hydra, like chop off one head and another one grows in its place. So it's a little bit harder to finally disrupt them and to take their stuff, which they did in this case. They were able to disrupt them, take their stuff, and recuperate money, which will hopefully go back to some of the victims, right? But it's still kind of the wild wild west, so it's good to see that they are kind of organizing and able to get in there and shut these larger criminal organizations down. It's still not as fast as I would like, unfortunately, because they're able to get as much money as they were able to get as quickly as they're able to get to it. But you got to start somewhere. So it's good to see them continue the process.
And this is why I think prevention will prevent that. I hate to say the same thing when I'm trying to explain it, but like if you go the prevention route, like if you make it to where it's not as profitable or it's more work for them to make money doing this, it ends up being one of those things. It's like, it's not worth the effort to sprout up again under a different name and go through all of this. Right. So like, don't pay out the ransoms, right? You know what I mean? Start taking these steps that make it harder for them to infiltrate, right? Because I don't want to say a lot, but I've seen it a lot to where when we do these articles and we talk about how somebody is infiltrated, right? Or a business is infiltrated, usually it is just poor security practices, man. Like they have, old updates they haven't, or what do you say, out of date software, you know what I mean? Like poor MFA, right? If implemented at all, right? Things like that. That's like, that should have been like way, way, way early in your implementation, right? Like in your planning stage, you should have said, these are the things we're going to do and we're going to implement. Like it shouldn't have been it shouldn't have been the attack vector. It shouldn't have been how they got into your network, right? But so like if you take the time to do those things, if you go through the prevention, right, be more proactive and not reactive, it makes it less profitable for them and it makes it not as attractive a target to them, right? So.
Yeah, and I would say because we do have to move on to the next topic, I would say get away from being theatrical, right? A lot of organizations it's just theater. They have policy and governance on top, but it's not applied, right? There's no action being taken. It's like we have all this great documentation. Like, look at us. And the opposite happens as well, right? Where you'll see people have like really good processes, but they're not documented. So then if there, someone were to quit or get hit by a bus, it'll all go, to the wayside. But
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, like people are really good at either building documentation or purchasing documentation, but then they're just like, I don't have anybody to implement it. And then like it's again theater. You're like, oh, I have all these policies. Well, that's great. But you don't have anything underneath them. Like you didn't implement anything that you talked about, or at least not to a good extent.
Hey, if you're a smaller or medium-sized company, hire an MSP, right?
Right.
Look at some MSPs that can, that's what their job is, right? They can help manage that stuff for you, right? But a few thoughts I wanted to get out before we move on to the next topic. One, right? The article, or rather, the announcement talks about specifically an example where the royal victims they gain access to your systems and they actually make you pay a ransom in Bitcoin. So the Bitcoin determines the amount of money that was sent, right? Because that's why they're saying in the article they mentioned at the time of ransom it was this, because Bitcoin changes. Obviously, it's very dynamic in its prices, right? So that's one thing to consider there. Bitcoin is how these people operate, right? They're going to ask for some type of crypto. And two, for the listeners that didn't know, right? The U.S. Secret Service heads up a lot of financial crimes, right? They do a lot of white collar crime and things like this, right? So they're not just, protecting politicians, presidents and whatnot. They actually have a financial crimes department that works on what these white collar crimes, right? So it's pretty interesting to look at. So they're not just, protection. They do a lot of cool stuff. That's all I wanted to get out there.
Department of Treasury, right? Is where
I think they were part of the Department of Treasury, but I think they did move over under Homeland Security. But they still work very much they still work very closely with that sector.
That's weird because they still work on the counterfeiting stuff too, like counterfeiting, like of money and things of like that nature. So I thought they were still Treasury, but you might be right. Like DHS is what they fall under. That could be right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm always interested. Like I had a coworker when I was in Virginia. His dad was Secret Service, so he grew up like traveling with his dad, and he talked about like all the politicians his father protected, and how they lived in like communities of themselves, kind of like the military, all kind of congregate around each other. They would do the same thing with the Secret Service. So it's always interesting to hear it. It really is like a little small special forces type situation, right? Like, so it's always cool to hear his stories. But moving on. So the third topic, I'll give it to you, Shannon.
All right, everybody. This one comes from federalnewsnetwork.com, written by Justin Doubleday. Title of this one is Latest CISA Cyber Guidance Urges Organizations to Inventory OT Assets, right? So again, this goes into what I said last time, right? Like, why are you not doing this anyway, right? Like Uncle Sam has put it in me that I do this all the time, where I inventory my assets, scan my assets, know the criticality of my assets, right? Like how is this something new out there, right? But that's what they're talking about, is like anything that you have out there in the operational environment, making sure you're inventorying it. You're taking the step of knowing the importance of it, right? Like again, scanning it, making sure you're doing all these different things that you need to do, right? That you should be doing. Again, comes second nature to me because of what, the DoD has said that we need to do. But one of the things they have in this article that I looked at is they actually have a Foundations for OT Cybersecurity Asset Inventory Guidance for Owners and Operators, right? And it was published August 13th. And what was interesting about this, what I liked about this, I should say, right, is they talk about the stakeholders in this, right? And they talk about the following industry stakeholders contributed to the development of this document. And when you look at some of the names on here, I like seeing this because these are organizations that are not necessarily widespread throughout the nation, right? So American Water, British Petroleum is not even, that's not even American, right? But they also have Denver Water, right? Southern California Edison, right? That's just a region of California, right? Pacific Gas and Electric Company, Montgomery Township Municipal Sewer Authority, right? So the reason I point this out is that when you have these smaller organizations, and I can't say for sure whether or not they were hit with a cybersecurity attack that made them contribute to this, but this is part of the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative that CISA led, right? I think it was like a year ago. I can't remember. I think we did a story on it, or we read it independently to ourselves, where we were passing it back and forth. But when you start having like these smaller organizations, right? Lansing Board of Water and Light, Eversource Energy, these are small organizations to where you get you get the view from the lower organizations, right? I don't want to say organizations, but what would you call that? Like infrastructure,
Critical infrastructure, maybe?
critical infrastructure. Yeah, but like they're on a smaller level, right?
Right.
To get their viewpoint on this and for them to contribute to this, that holds a little bit of weight for me, right? Because it's not like Microsoft was like, yeah, this is how you should do it, right? It's like when laws are made in America, like sometimes you have it to where it's the big companies trying to get the little guys out of there, right? Like they'll implement something like if you have any type of hotel business or something like that, you have to have a fire suppression system in every room, right? Like those little mom and pop bed and breakfast places, they can't make that happen, right? They're usually a little house or something like that, right? So when you start doing things like that, you're pricing out the little guys, but this is the little guys saying, hey, these are the things that we have seen, at our level that I think need to be taken into accountability. And it was a good thing to see. But Chris, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, so this one, I know, we're coming from a military mindset, we're biased, but I'm actually willing to give, industrial little leeway on this just because, right, like the whole internet of things, it's built up, to where little devices like sensors, or if you're talking specific, like things like agriculture sensors, day and night sensors, things for, water, heating, and all these types of sensors that, generally are, let's just say, they're installed by non-cybersecurity people. They're going to be installed by field people that are out there working on the field, right? Image sensors, air quality sensors, right? That's installed by an HVAC guy, most likely. And guess what? An HVAC guy is not going to think about cybersecurity. That's not their primary duty. So if you're talking about IoT sensors that are, heavily connected to internet, right? Even your thermostat, right? Like a lot of people don't realize, those smart thermostat devices that you have in your homes, right? They're IoT devices, right? And IoT devices are subject to cybersecurity breaches. So somebody could potentially, a bad actor could gain access to your temperature and just make sure you're hot or cold your entire time, right? So it's just little things to consider, right? So, and it highlights the importance of just cybersecurity being a responsibility for an entire organization, right? Not just a cybersecurity professional, right? So cybersecurity is now part of regular business practice, right? It's part of our everyday considerations when it comes to our general business dealings, right? We're installing something, right? We're working on a new product, right? IoT, does it have an IP address, right? Is it sending something back to a central log? If it does that, it's an IoT device, and chances are it can be compromised. Is there any sensitive data traveling to that? Right? You don't want that type of information to be, accessed by bad actors. So what's cool is I opened up the article, right, and they actually have a link to the actual CISA guide, right? It's pretty extensive. It's awesome, actually. It goes through some specifics, for example, the oil and gas organizations, electricity, taxonomy for electricity organizations, and water and wastewater, right? So it talks about how you can inventory your items at because it's essentially managing like a little mini database, right? Everybody's inventory is going to be different. Everybody's inventory is not going to be standardized or normalized at some type of database, right? But it gives you best practices as an organization to be able to index and find that information, and then see if there's any anomalies that are happening, right, at these specific sites. Right? So at the end of the day, like, look, farmers are not going to know. They're not going to think about it for cybersecurity. They're worried about growing their crops. OT devices, right? All this operational technology stuff. It's extremely important for just general business, especially at these utilities and operational technology devices. Right, they're going to have to be normalized to some degree. But I think they also talk about performance monitoring. What's the uptime on these IoT devices? For example, is some water sensor in your sewage system, whatever, is for some reason, is it out every day for like an hour at weird times? Is that planned maintenance? Is that a planned outage? Right? Did somebody take it out, or is it out? Was it taken out? Was it compromised? Right? So many things that can go. There's so many scenarios that can be played out when it comes to these IoT devices, because generally you set them and forget it, right? You set them and forget it. So it's just a lot of stuff to consider. Very cool resources if you're in the utilities or energy department. Definitely check out the CISA link in this article, but it is publicly available now, so definitely recommend checking it out. And with that, I'll just pass it over to Ryan.
So what I always found interesting, like when me and Shannon worked in Langley, in Virginia, there was a big push for SCADA system protection, right? Like the Air Force, as well as all the other services, had a lot of um, industrial equipment to do with, because we have our own water plant, our own waste treatment, we have our own, this and that, and so on and so forth. And I never really understood the difference, and I thought that OT was just replacing SCADA, which SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition, but it still exists. So what I found was this really cool diagram, and it goes over the differences between OT, ICS, and SCADA security, right? So OT is operational technology, which is what this article is really getting to, and that encompasses, right? So there's a really cool diagram where you have OT over ICS. ICS stands for Industrial Control Systems. And then Industrial Control Systems encompass DCS and SCADA. I can't find what DCS stands for. I would assume something like
Distributed Control Systems.
There you go. Thank you. And those two intertwine, right? Those two bubbles touch. So you have OT is over ICS, and ICS is over DCS and SCADA, and SCADA and DCS overlap. Because I was like, this is OT a term that's replacing SCADA? Because I never hear SCADA anymore. But no, it's not. It is a overarching concept, but you still have SCADA systems in your waste treatment plants, water facilities, nuclear power plants, things of that nature. So there's a huge industry here, right? So if you wanted to specialize in this, I think that would be a really cool way to go. It's not necessarily something I would want to devote all my time to, but I'm always fascinated how those systems work and are continuously, like you said, IoT devices are continuously being integrated within these systems. So you have like water treatment plants being taken over, like in the past, where the one at Oldsmar was found to be, in quotation marks, not a hack. It was more of a oversight or a broken process. I don't know. It was widely reported that it was an RDP hack, but you know, uh, it's not my water table. So I digress. I'm over here by Zephyr Hills, as you see in the stores. Zephyr Water is over here, but I always found it to be interesting and something I wanted to look more into, because I'm fascinated by IoT devices, right? Because everything's getting an IP address.
I mean, it's all
Everything's getting an
networking,
address.
right? If you're a networking guy, you understand how IoT works. It still needs to connect to some type of LAN controller, right? And it needs to go back to some type of server. It's all there, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, like I think that is something like, because we always talk about things that aren't going away, right? Like, so I think cybersecurity will be an industry that will last the test of time, because everything's getting an IP address, everything's getting a MAC address, right? So everything will be connected to the internet at some point. But you also have like obviously your hands-on skills, right? You need plumbers and HVAC technicians, things of that nature. But I think a subdivision of security and networking is definitely these OT systems, and they're not going to go anywhere anytime soon, because we need these critical infrastructure things, right? We need water, we need power. So I think this would be something like, if you're looking to get into the field and you have any experience in any of these industries, this might be your pivot, right? You'd be like, okay, well, I worked at one of these facilities, so let me start to dig into how does the network work in here and how does security work. And I think that would be a good pivot for you to get into the industry. So it's very fascinating. Like, even just now, I found out DCS. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Now I know. But now I don't have anything, super mind blowing to add to this conversation. It's just there's always something new to learn in this field, and I always find it fascinating, especially when casinos are being taken over because their smart thermostat was hacked. So now they're
It was
losing payroll money.
it was it was in their aquarium, wasn't it? Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in their fish tank.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, they hopped from the fish tank smart thermos into the payroll system and start taking some money. So it's very fascinating. Ocean's 11 type stuff when it comes to these systems. So definitely continue to check that out. But we gotta talk about our weeks. We have to get that in here. So if you haven't noticed, we've changed the format. So we're not divided into 3 episodes anymore with a interview sprinkled in there from time to time. Which go back and check out. I have really 2 cool interviews that we just recorded. One with Angela Diaz she's a risk officer. Learned a lot of really cool stuff about how risk impacts everything, right? And how fraud actually does kill, right? It's not hyperbole. And then also check out Alan Wesley, where he's a super smart guy. He has a whole digital avatar. Like, the dude is awesome. But Alan goes into more of the future of agentic intelligence and how it'll impact us. So it's definitely like a futurist type conversation. So I had a lot of fun in that one as well. But without further ado, Shannon, how was your week?
It was a good week. So celebrated my wedding anniversary. Wife and I went out to dinner at the Broadmoor. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Broadmoor over here in Colorado. It's a big hotel, one of those expensive joints you go to and whatnot. But
The
we had dinner
Broadmoor,
there.
because we have a Bilmar. Is it similar?
I don't know. I don't know what the Biltmore is. But the Broadmoor, like we ate dinner there. That it was a good dinner. It was pretty good. Expensive. One of those things, right? But they have like a wall of fame of people that have visited, and like the pictures are taken at the Broadmoor, right? Like on their golf course, their ranch,
Gotcha.
things of that nature. But like a lot of ex-presidents on there. I was like, wow, you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
old hotel, very nice. So we had, like I said, we had dinner. We walked around at night, looked at the lights and whatnot, and just talked about the next several years, right? What you gonna say,
That's
Chris?
awesome.
No,
Congratulations.
I was gonna say I just googled the Broadmoor and I'm like, this looks awesome.
Yeah,
The longest running Forbes 5-star AAA 5-diamond resort. Hey,
Yeah.
please sponsor us, Broadmoor.
it was nice, man. Like I had never been there before. My wife had been before because one of her friends, her husband surprised her with a birthday getaway for her and some of her friends. And there's like this thing called Cloud Camp or Camp Cloud or something like that. And they go and they get cabins, and it's not cheap, but it was nice. But no, we had a good time. The wife and I, we love just being out, just the two of us. I love my children, I do, right? But sometimes I can go without them for meals and stuff, right? But no, we did that. So I watched the Superman movie. I just ended up buying it on Prime, the new one,
Okay.
the James Gunn one. And Ryan, I know you said you liked this better than some of the ones in the past. I think I'm not as big a James Gunn fan as other people are.
I like the Man of Steel version.
Yeah. With Henry
I
Cavill.
like that one. I
Yeah.
like that one.
It was not a bad movie. Don't let me say it's a bad movie. But
Yeah, it was a good movie.
Here's the thing. Ryan's a Superman hater, right? But he gave it an 8 out of 10. And I
give
was
it an
like,
8.
okay, yeah. I was like,
Solid
okay, it's
8.
going to be a 9.5 for me. There are some things I liked. I liked some of the characters they introduced, and I'm like, okay. And one of the things he did that I really love is he didn't go into. We all know the story of Superman at this point, right?
Yeah.
No need to go into it. Go from a child growing up or whatever, and he got right into it. Like there's this
Exactly.
3,000 years ago. It was this.
It's just like going over Spider-Man's backstory again.
Yeah.
It's been played out a million times.
No
Yeah,
need.
Uncle Ben. Man,
Uncle
let
Ben,
that
how
man-
many times has he got to
him-
sacrifice
Let
himself?
him rest.
Let him rest.
But like that I liked, and they got right to it. They did what they needed to. But I don't know, man. And it being darker, because there are some spots in it. I'm like, ooh, okay, that was dark, right? Like the portal world and whatnot.
Well, yeah.
Up in there, I was
Yeah.
like, ooh,
That good
okay.
Portal Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, that's a little dark, and then some of the stuff that's done there. But I liked it. You say an 8, I'd probably say 7.
Really?
Right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't
Okay.
know what it is about it that made me think that. And the first part of it was a little slow. Like it's a lot more talking. Like it starts out with like, there's stuff happening and there's a fight, and then it's
Yeah,
like
the Hammer of Bravia.
yeah, whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
And some stuff you figure out, right? Like I'm like, okay, I know this is how they're able to do this, right? I figured it out before it was even exposed later on in the movie. I'm like, there's only one way to get to that place, right? So that was pretty good. I didn't mind it. So I know I said before in the past, I was watching a lot of like Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. I moved on to Steven Seagal now. I don't know what it is. But these old movies, I'm like, and he's a terrible actor. Like I didn't realize how bad he was. And I'm just like, what's the one? Is it Mark for Death or whatever? The one where he's in the coma and he's making the coma scene and whatnot. And I'm like, yo, you're terrible.
Yeah.
Like, but
where's the one where he's on the ship? What's that one called?
Under Siege.
Under Siege.
That's a Navy. You're talking about Senior Chief.
Yeah.
That's my man.
Yeah. I was like, that's one of those great Navy classics.
I'm gonna
Top Gun and Under Siege.
I love Under
find
Siege.
it.
Navy classics, baby.
That one I will like if it's on somewhere, like even if it has the
Watching it.
or not, I'll watch it. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
what it
it's
is.
There's
usually
some
like
good
U-
actors
US
on there.
Yeah, but no, yeah, the TV watching. That's what I did. I started playing Madden. I haven't played a game yet. I'm just like in the franchise stuff, like starting up a team, doing that. There's some stuff in it. I'm like, okay, they're going a little too into detail now. It's like each week you got to plan out your play sheets and what you're gonna do, like on offense.
It's like a real sim. Like
it's real, and I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out. Like based on the team you're playing, like, do you still want to do a bunch of blitzes or do you want to do more cover 2? Cover 4? And I'm like, that's a good strategy, but like I have to figure it out on what I'm going to do. And you can only implement certain things with franchise points, right? Like so, but that's pretty much it for me. You know what I mean? Chris, what about you, man? How was your week?
So actually, good leeway. It's been good. But good leeway in talking about sports because one, the NFL preseason is going on, right? So the only reason I pay attention to preseason is dynasty fantasy football, right? So I'm picking up some rookies and things like that. Looking who's a star there because these people could be potentially season stars, right? But yesterday, so as at a time of recording, I picked up the gentleman from the wide receiver rookie from New England, Efton Chisholm, right? He crushed it yesterday with 6 for 6 receiving, 71 yards, and 1 touchdown, right? Rookie, right? I picked him up, and then last week I picked up Darius Cooper from the Eagles, who had a good preseason game. Again, it's just preseason, doesn't mean anything, right? But you never know. These guys that are trying to make a name for themselves, or you never know because, like for example, Adam Thielen on the Vikings, right? He wasn't a top prospect, coming out of the draft, but guess what? He was killing it, right? So I'm looking for those, little players like that can provide a lot of value at a low cost, right? That's the cool thing about fantasy, at least dynasty fantasy. It's not, you don't redraft every year. You're like a GM. I'm a general manager for my team. So we're drafting rookies and things like that each year, and you're stuck with the players that you have. And if they are injured, just got to deal with it, right? So been doing that. That's been kind of fun. Fired up WoW the other day. It was great. Just played for a few hours. Yeah, I loved it.
Like vanilla classic?
No, I actually played the new one, right? The
Okay.
War Within. So I'm playing my Death Knight. I love it. I love my Death Knight.
Gotcha.
Like tanking.
So I could never really get into because I started with Dark Ages of Camelot, right? So
Yeah.
way back in the day, but it's too much happening on the screen. I don't know. It's just like cools and buffs and
I love that stuff. I love it. Yeah, I love spell. So that's one of the things that huge difference between PC games and console games, right? You're limited to how many spells you can do based on the number of combinations, permutations on the trigger and whatever, right? But on my keyboard, I've got the shift key. I've got all these keys here that could be a different spell, right? So if you've played MMOs or whatever for a long time, you've figured out your system to where you can have 2 spells per key, right? Like for example, I use QE, QW, R and T for spells, and you shift all those. Then you have
crazy.
Essentially 8 spells there, as well as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through 6. Those are all spells, and you give those all shifts, right? So all of that can be spells as well, right? And then there's a movement key. I love it. It's fun, and it's just it provides a little bit of I don't know, maybe keeps my brain fast, because I admittedly, right, it's still it's fast paced for me. I'm when I played WoW 20 years ago, right? It was not this fast, right? There's not this many spells, right? So now there's all these. You're up to level 80 now, and then it just kind of I think it's aged well, the game, and I think the graphics have gotten slightly better. But part of the charm is that the graphics aren't super incredible. It still has that cartoony feel to it, a fantasy game feel to it. So
right.
I do enjoy it a lot, and it's generally accessible to a lot of computer, a lot of Macs can run it, right? There's regular laptops can run it, right? The regular person can play. He doesn't have to spend thousands of dollars on the, NVIDIA 5090 and just to play it at decent frame rates. Right? It's pretty cool. I like that about it, even though I do want to build a computer like that.
Right.
But yeah, so there's that. What else? We've been making pizza here, so we got a little pizza still.
Yeah, tell us about that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's become a weekly thing now, right? It's fantastic. We picked some, it's so much better when you just make it yourself. My wife makes the dough, I make the sauce. We team it up, and we have this little baking steel right in the oven, put it in the top rack or 2/3 top rack. It's fantastic. I highly recommend it. There's something about pizza that doesn't have all these preservatives and all that crap they put on whatever. You never know what you eat. But when you control your food, man, it's absolutely delicious. But yeah, that's been my week. Not too bad, right?
That's awesome. It may make my mouth water. I'm hungry.
Yeah,
I'm on a diet, so I did pig out yesterday though. We went out as a family. My mother-in-law's in town, so all 8 of us went to a Mexican restaurant. So I did get it in, but for the most part, I've been really good because I'm adding more exercise back to my routine, but also cutting calories. Right. So I'm kind of doing it kind of dirty. I'm not doing macros and micros. Nah, just deficit. What can I get away with before I start getting shaky? So that's where I'm currently at in my life. Need to drop a few pounds. For the most part, this week has been just me working on the website. So the website is up, ramcyber.io. Looks a lot better. I got a lot of pictures, you know what I mean, like of the crew in there, and just try to make it as functional and professional as possible. So you can now go there and see all three pillars, right? I have the RAM Cyber with its services. I have the podcast, as well as now the book. So all three pillars of RAM, all on one website. So definitely go check that out. And if you want to go straight to the book and purchase it, you can go to theothersideofthefirewall.com. It'll take you straight to the product page where you can buy the book at a discount from me. Or if you want to go and buy it from your bookstore of choice, it's pretty much available everywhere. So, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, etc. So definitely pick that up as well. But aside from that, so we talked about Clear Obscure Expedition 33. I beat that. Really good game. I started playing more Donkey Kong, kind of savoring that because it really is like a throwback to like Mario Odyssey and games of that nature. So I'm having fun doing that. But I need something with a little bit more meat on the bone, right? I've currently been searching. I haven't found a game yet that I want to sink like time into. So I'm looking for something I can play on PC or console that not necessarily RPG, but just something with a little bit more weight to it. But I did download Marvel vs. Capcom Collection, X-Men Children of Adam, Marvel vs. Capcom 1 and 2, Street Fighter vs. Capcom. Like I downloaded those out of nostalgia. Kind of want to get good at them. So that maybe that's it. Maybe I pivot into fighting games because I've never been good at those. That fun because it's pretty, right? When you do some crazy combos on the screen, everything flashes. I like that type of stuff. And yeah, just getting ready for another week of work, getting the website up to snuff. Next integration will be I built a GPT called Ask a CISSP. So Ask a CISSP GPT. I shared it with my coworkers because they love when I give them things to break. I'm like, hey, check this out. Like, but its purpose will be I'm going to integrate it into the website at some point, and I want it to be able to answer those easier in quotation mark questions, right? If you want to reach out and find out like what framework should I be using, how should I be using it, how do I do this type of assessment, like things you can self-service as well as career advice, right? It's been trained on all of the most robust frameworks that I use at Ram Cyber, as well as the guide, and it'll also toss you to episodes that might answer your questions as well. But ultimately, what I wanted to do is give you the easy stuff, obviously build trust in the brand, and then for the hard stuff, after I learn how to use API calls a little bit better, it'll actually direct you to a service that we provide that can fulfill your need. So I hope to have that up in the next week or two. But again, I'm learning as I go, right? GPT is built, but how do I integrate it and make it actually give you the proper information and not be all salesy? That's the art of it. So I'm working on that currently. So be on the lookout for that. It's not on the marketplace yet, but it'll probably be on the marketplace in the next week before I put it on the website, just so people can try to break it. But yeah, super excited, right? Like things are rolling. My small business association application is complete, so I'm waiting for my badges. I should hopefully get service disabled, veteran-owned business, a veteran-owned business, and minority-owned business badges soon. That can help me compete on the market as well, because people get breaks and things of that nature, or they target that type of business for their particular needs. So very, very boring week, but I'm very excited. Definitely continue to check that out. Oh, and I started cloud, so I'm going to do AWS fundamentals. Trying to be like the all-knowing Chris over here, who's
Nah.
Chris is
deep
getting
deep in
it
the
in.
certs,
Yeah, Chris is getting it
deep
in
in the
on that.
certs. So, but yeah, because I'm working on a work project that involves hybrid cloud, so I want to definitely get a little bit more foundational, so that it'll help me with assessing their environment as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So having exciting week. I checked out those pictures of Broadmoor. Congratulations. Like this hallway looks like something out of the Titanic.
I love it.
Yeah, that is elegance, right? It's like fine dining over here.
It's multiple buildings too, right? Like we had to walk to a different building to see the Hall of Fame, as they call it, right? Like all the
Gotcha.
people that have visited and whatnot, and like the pictures. Like I said, a lot of ex-presidents too, right? Like President Obama, President Clinton, President First Bush, you know what I mean? President
Right.
Baby Bush. Like it was a lot. Different actors and athletes and stuff like that. Like some of them you'll see on there 2 times. Like I saw it was like Jerry Lewis on his honeymoon in 1949, and then I went to the other wall. I was like, Jerry Lewis again? I was like, it was different times. Like he had been there, but yeah. It was
That's
awesome.
awesome. It reminds the silhouette, like obviously it's very pristine, it's very, very pretty, but it reminds me of The Shining, right? Remember he had
Yes.
to go out there?
Yes. That's what you think of when you
Okay,
come up
yeah,
on it.
that's pretty cool. Like all work and no play makes Shannon a dull boy. All right. Well, yeah, definitely continue to check us out. So hit up all the websites again that go by our name, ramcyber.io, the one-stop shop where you get all of our information and products, as well as the other side of firewall.com. We'll take you straight to the product page so you can purchase the guide. Hit me up personally. I'm at RyRy Security Guy. That's RYRY Security Guy. You can find me pretty much everywhere, but LinkedIn is where I'm most active. And where can they find you, Chris?
You can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Chris Avicon. Last name is spelled A. Bacon.
There it is. Stay safe. Stay secure.